Hello and welcome to the Chronicle podcast. This is Samuel Lyon. It's another great episode here for me. I'm excited to have this conversation. So, the person joining me for a sit down conversation today is someone I'm elated to talk to. Is one I've been reading through the books, trying to get things ready, prepped for this. I'm grateful he took time out from his schedule to make this possible. And shout out to Cobham Studios. Shout out to Alex, our editor. Shout out to everybody that made last night possible because out of this sitting for this podcast, we were out for King Beauty for Mr. and Miss Nigerian Campus 2026. It was a great event, 10 hours long, but we're grateful we were able to scale through. And I'm here sitting down for this conversation. So, without further ado, joining me is someone that is making waves in the sports partnership world, a former intern for the Indiana Pacers sports team. So loving and grateful to have Matt Wain on the podcast. Matt Wain, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
I was excited to talk to you about the whole craziness. I understand you're still in school, University of Oregon,
Yep.
and I can understand how crazy it is trying to parlay the real world versus the textbook theory in school and everything. But if I could just obviously this is a Chronicle podcast, could get to know you, who would you say is Matt Wayne for those that are joining us on the podcast and wanting to get to know the person behind Matt Wayne? Hmm.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Fishers, Indiana. So I kind of have a lot of roots in Indiana, but I
Okay.
came out to the University of Oregon to study sports business. So I knew Oregon had a very good like alumni
Yes.
pool, a very good business school, and a very good just network in general. Especially they're very like a very plugged in school to the sports scene. They have a very recognizable mascot and logo with the ducks. So I knew that would be a very good landing place to kind of start building my career in
Yeah.
the industry. So as soon as I got out to the University of Oregon, I immediately started immersing myself in the sports business club here. I'm actually up in the headquarters right now of the Warsaw Sports Business Club. Um, my first internship in the industry was at USA Track and Field, and their offices are also located in Indianapolis. So I was an intern there at USA Track and Field, and I was able to gain a lot of like Olympic and global experience in sports. And then following that, I was a marketing intern for Indy 11, which is the
Yeah.
USL soccer team that's also located in Indianapolis. And then I did a study abroad in London where I was able
Yeah.
to. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I know before you obviously because I want to hear the whole journey, but like I saw obviously because the marketing side of things, you doing like the marketing internship here for the Indy 11, I for the professional soccer team, and then seeing how you parlay this to the global sports business strategy when you studied this at the UK, and also you interning for the Indian Pacers and everything. Like I will just see the fact that you were dabbling in other sports world. That was one of the things that was fascinating for me. And I'm like, it's not just the track and field one too. I missed that one too. So it's one of those things that I looked at and I'm like, I was so excited to talk to you about on this. Sorry for that. I just wanted to put that out there and allow you go.
Yeah, of course. It's been awesome to kind of gain so many different perspectives across the industry from like USA Track and Field to a smaller team like Indy 11 and then parlaying that to my study abroad where I got to like go visit like Chelsea, the Tottenham Spurs, Manchester City, Manchester United, kind of get like a very good view about how they run things on a global scale and then being able to take that experience and bring it back for my internship with the Indiana Pacers was awesome.
Amazing, awesome. But so in terms of like the whole craziness, because I would love to know. Yeah, obviously, you're in Indiana Pacers, being there and everything, and looking at the work you did there, in terms of I understand about the sports, the culture, and like the business and how business intersects. Because sports and culture to me, it's like literally one in the same because it's everybody coming in to make something work. And I just wanted to like for you to shed more light about your time in Indiana Pacers. I understand you were part of like the sports partnership, like the brands and fans at the pro level. Like, what was that all about? Like, how was the internship there? What were you able to do? And kind of like the experience, it's all experience. If you could, share that with us today.
Yeah, so my experience at the Pacers was awesome. I was a corporate partnerships intern, so a lot of what I did was working on like the activation side of the sport. So I would get to sit in the meetings with the partners. For example, a big one that we had was for the Fever season. I was there towards the end of the Fever season while they did their playoff run, and then the first half of the Pacer season. But Cheez-Its is a big sponsor for a big partner with the Fever. So, like an example of like an activation with them, we would actually take like bags of Cheez-Its and we would like hole punch them and we would hook them to like parachutes and we would drop them off from the top of the stadium down to the fans like after the first quarter of the game. So just different like fun activations like that of like how we can get the brand out there to the Fever fans and things like that. Just spreading the awareness to the fans, making sure that they can see the brand and like that the activation goes well. A lot of stuff I did like in the office. I worked with the corporate partnerships team. I would help out with like recap decks and things like that, making sure like activate planning for activation on game nights goes well. And hmm, trying to think of some other big key pieces there. Just activations on the concourse too. That was a big part of game night. Obviously, a lot of partners, they're a big time to activate is during game nights. So partners that aren't exactly as involved on the broadcast side take a different approach to in arena marketing. So they'll have stuff either like on the walls. A lot of them will set up booths within the concourse where they do different things like Cheez-Its has a booth,
Okay.
Ascension St. Vincent, which is like a local hospital. They have a booth in the main concourse that they have scheduled every single home game. So it's really just about like working with the different partners, kind of like understanding everything that's in their contractual agreements between them and the sales team, and then making sure that
Okay.
they get activated on game days.
You know, obviously, because like I said, acknowledge, I give you your flowers for like everything you try to do and everything, like the marketing aspect, you learning like the everything from the concourse to like the merchandising, the everything that has to do with the business. Because at the end of the day, it's a business, and obviously you trying to pick up yourself and learn all through these different departments and all. But like I looked at this while trying to prep for this. I looked at like everything. I understand like the roles you played and the hats that you had to take on in order to learn through the process as being part of some of these incredible sports team and like their brands. Like, what was like the most challenging for you? Like, which of the roles and hats you had to play in any of this sports team that that challenged you the most as an intern and someone that tries to learn your way through the whole thing.
That's a good question. I would probably say definitely the Pacers role, just because it was like obviously the most renowned being an NBA team, and
Okay.
also before that, I came from a lot of marketing, just straight marketing experience. So my time at the Pacers was my first time kind of breaking into the partnership scene, and I mean obviously that changed me for the better, and I
Mm,
definitely want to stay in partnerships now. But making that adjustment was I'd probably say a challenging factor for me just because I had to learn a whole different side of the business and partnerships interact with so many different departments within the organization. Like being in marketing, you were kind of just working within the marketing department. Obviously, there's a little bit of crossover there, but it's more about marketing out to the fans. And when in corporate partnerships, it's more about marketing. Like you work with the marketing team, obviously, but you're working with the partners themselves, and you work with like the sales team. You work with game ops just to make sure you work with just so many different departments throughout the organization in partnerships.
yeah.
So just like maintaining those relationships, building those relationships, and making sure just you're firing on all those different cylinders was kind of like the biggest adjustment into partnerships. But at the same time, it's probably the part that I enjoy the most about it.
Okay, so as a pro wrestling fan, right now we have so many discourse going on. Obviously, Endeavor, TKO. I'm talking about WWE, the World Wrestling Entertainment. Obviously, being acquired by the Endeavor group of companies, being part of TKO and everything with the conglomerate of WWE, TKO. Sorry, UFC. We have other sport things that are part of the package. But like one of the things of as fans, we have issues of like the executives, they quote unquote the suit and ties, like they call them and everything. Talking about like them, they take branding serious, they take marketing serious, they take about partnership and collaboration, and sometimes it affects the product. And while prepping to have you on here, I was like, I want to talk about the impact of AI and data, because sometimes we get to see that obviously using usage of sometimes it when it comes to itself, it makes the product a little bit soulless, as fans would say. I just wanted to get your take on, obviously you've been part of some of these sports team and all. What do you have to say about the impact of AI, and or in terms of like the data side of things, and like the soulless side of things, in terms of like the algorithm and how thing works, and how can we make this better? Because I understand it's the new times. We need to get along with the new times, but at the same time, how could we preserve like the culture and like what made what we love special without trying to generate things with all these records and everything? I just wanted to get your take on that.
Definitely, I think that's a good question. So, I mean, AI is obviously super prevalent right now, and I think there's a right way and a wrong way to use it, especially from like a sports organization
Okay.
perspective. I think obviously there's a lot of ways
Yes.
you can use it to kind of help you and aid you in terms of like research and developing things, but I also think a lot of people recently have been using it more as like a shortcut, and I think that doing it that way
Yeah.
can like create a bit of a lack of authenticity when fans start to pick up on like that AI product. So I think that can kind of hurt the connection between the brand and the fans if you're pumping out a lot of just this artificial content. It can just seem a lot less authentic. But it's kind of tricky just because I know there's so many benefits to it and that's the direction we're trending in. But there's just walking that fine line of implementing AI into your business without appearing inauthentic.
Yeah, that's okay. Amazing. Because obviously I needed to get in that, because the perception versus reality side of things is so important. And one of the things I wanted to also get on is in terms of athletes or sports stars, or however you want to address them, being brands themselves. You see it nowadays where whatever they do, all the the athletes are there, all the sports stars there, whether the world of pro wrestling, NBAs, the NFL, soccer, whatever, track and field. You see how these athletes go ahead themselves to brand themselves out there and be a brand. If you were to, have the opportunity to, have an athlete, especially the when we know we have the ones that have built the legacy already and they are now a brand. So like for up and coming sports personality trying to get themselves out there, what are the things that you would want them to point out? Obviously, because you are in the partnerships, the collaboration, the marketing aspects, what are the things they should look forward to? Because when I get to talk to people like you and understanding that you studied for this, you read for this is what you are braving yourself for. So for an athlete that's trying to put themselves out there, they need someone like Matt Wain to understand how to get them handle the business side of things, and what should they look forward to. I wanted to get that part with you when I was planning to have you on here. Okay.
I think a big part for athletes is like authenticity, especially through social media. Every athlete essentially is their own brand on social media. So the way that they kind of represent themselves based off how they post, who they interact with, the types of comments they make, all kind of like put
Yeah.
them under their own personal brand. So obviously making sure an athlete trying to grow in this space is obviously needs to be consistent. Obviously needs to be have their brand, like personal brand defined. So they need to know like who they are, like what they stand for, those types of things. And I would say just like consistency and being yourself online
Yeah.
is the best way to grow your brand, because I think the worst thing you can do is just not being authentic, just trying to like hop on the wave of what's trending and doing things like that. And I feel like maybe that can get a little bit of short term attention, but in the long run, I think it's a lot better to just stay authentic to yourself.
You talk about authenticity on the whole thing, and my own point looking at authenticity is the fact that um sometimes the real you gets in the way, because you mentioned, I hear you talk about social media, and for you to be authentic out there, sometimes you want to speak your mind, but you have to understand, oh, if you have partnerships, if you have a media team, you're working with other things, you're representing a brand, you're representing yourself. I know sometimes your own thoughts and ideologies might not just go in line with how the world is at the time. So how would someone, an athlete or a sports star that is trying to branch out and brand themselves, how do they have to, this is where the soulless part comes in, because sometimes you can't really say what you really feel, because it doesn't just align with the branding and the ethos of what you are trying to build. So how do they understand when to draw the line? Must everybody now have like a social media strategist? How do they handle themselves? These are the questions that I know for sure that someone like you might just be trying to get figure out the answers, so that if you are in position to be a part of a team for a brand or as an athlete, you understand how to get this done. And I would want to pick your brain on that. And like, how do you manage, wanting to be yourself and still understanding that, oh, I am part of something big, something that might even be bigger than me at some point. I don't know how, if that, ring when you hear me start. So I just wanted to get that part out there. If there's anything you have to say on that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's really athlete dependent. I mean, if we look at the UFC as an example, we can just take two American athletes, Sean Strickland, who just competed this past weekend. Obviously, like the way he is, his voice, like he makes it difficult for himself to attract sponsors, but still, he's still authentic to himself. So the people that are interested in him know what they're going to get in terms of when they approach Sean Strickland. And then like another American athlete who will be competing next on UFC 250 or 350 UFC Freedom, Bo Nickel. He's like just kind of like the stereotypical like good boy. Like he'll answer all the media questions the right way. If like he works with a lot of different sponsors, and it's just all about the athlete. I'd say it's very dependent on the athlete, kind of their personality and the types of brands and causes that they want to align themselves with.
Okay, because that's like one of those things you have to look. So because to me, I look at this, I'm like, there's no really like thin line between being yourself and because at the end of the day, okay, this is business. You are trying to get food on the table. You are trying to build a legacy here. Sometimes what you feel isn't just necessary. Like it's not like it's too risky because you just have to. So I look at this, and sometimes when I see some stars, that go out there and literally because of an act they try to put, they literally destroy what they build, and I'm like, I try to want to have empathy or kind of like try to say, okay, let me understand like where they came from with that, with how they were handling things. Uh, it's just one of those crazy things. But obviously, this is the Chronicle podcast. We also like to get into things that are, way outside, like maybe what you're doing and everything. So one of the biggest question I always like to ask any guest I have on here is this question, because I understand that what I'm about to ask is very important to human economy, is important with life, business, and all. Matt Wain, you're still in school. You're graduating this summer, like from what I saw from your profile, and you're working on so many things. You are trying to partner and collaborate and be a part of things. You've done internship. You've studied in the UK. You've done other things. What have you understood about money, and how important? What is the importance of money when if you are trying to explain to someone that is listening to you right now your own perception about money?
I mean, obviously, money makes the world go round, but if you're someone like me, kind of starting out in the sports industry, I think having like the mindset of it all being about money is kind of the wrong approach.
Yeah.
Like if you're looking at someone to go in the to work in sports, you kind of just have to adopt the mindset of at the beginning, especially, it's going to be a little bit rough, and the paychecks might not be fully there, but as you kind of grow into your career and have confidence in yourself, like the right opportunities will come. Networking is a super important part of the industry, so making sure you're very like tapped in with your network and things like that are super important. But I honestly think like if you're trying to work in the industry, like especially at the beginning point, money shouldn't be your top priority. from that perspective. But then obviously, if you're talking about in business, obviously money is super important, and things like broadcast rights and partners, like all money revolves around all those things in such a gigantic way. So
Obviously, looking at you, thank you so much for answering that question. It's always very different for other guests. Um, I We understand the importance of money. All right. So one of those things I want to ask is obviously looking at you. You're trying to get your rank yourself, get yourself up there. Obviously, you'll be working with a team. You are looking as being part of like the executive part of things, like quote unquote, as the fans always say, the office versus the boys. Whatever team, if it's the NFL, the NBA, pro wrestling, if we always have the office, we always have those working for the business. And I want to ask, sometimes we have some athletes come out and say, and when as like who really made an impact on you, and they all sometimes it's not even the coach, it's not even the producers they work with, and everything. Sometimes it's just one of the office people, the executive people that you hear them talk about the makeup team, the production team, those in the marketing, the merchandise team, and all. And sometimes we get focused more on the stars and we forget those behind, making the stars what we see, those that are getting them ready. And I want to ask you this particular question in terms of like, for Matt Wain, what would somebody get when they get you? Like, who would you really say you are, and how do you open? Because sometimes I know you're a human being, and you understand that sometimes you have to put in the work. You also try to make sure you be of best value to whatever brand you're working for, or whatever personality you're working with. You want to be of best value. So in terms of how you show up to do your job, what do they get when they get you? When they get Matt Wayne, who do they get?
good question. Something I always like say about myself. Obviously, a super motivated, super good team worker, and just like a thing that I'll always drop during like a job interview or something like that is no job is
Yeah,
too small for me, especially in this industry. Like starting out, working internships and stuff like that. Like you're really just there to plug in, be helpful when you can, and learn as much as you can
yeah,
about the industry. So being in those positions, just kind of taking that like hands-on approach of just doing everything and anything you can, learning as much as you can, and just trying to be as useful as possible in those early
yeah,
stages so you can gain that experience. And then kind of as you build your way up, you'll start to understand things more. Like as I went from USA track and field to Indy 11 to Pacers, like I got such a broad view of sports and so many different levels of sports. It really just helps develop you as like a character. So I would say just that development, that hard work, and that the fact that no job is too small for me.
and I love that so much. And in terms of like, what's your superpower? How do you show up and all of that? I understand it's the month of May, Mental Health Awareness Month, and I understand like you being out there trying to put yourself out there, put things out. Sometimes it might be crazy. You might not just feel like your best self every time. And even right now, seated here with you doing this, I know for sure that this would eventually be a thing this week. But I would be lying if I said, oh, well, on the lights, getting the gadgets ready, getting ready, prepped to sit down here and get this done was like, oh, I need to. Sometimes I just don't feel like I could just push ahead, and I understand how it's really. And I try to like, what do I do to get myself back in the mojo? And talking to you right now and getting to know you on this podcast, I just want to ask, like, how do you protect your peace in a world where chaos is a normalcy? Everybody's just like running headless and everything. How do you protect your peace so that you can show up in the world and be your best self?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I'd probably just say like my support system, like my friends and family, I'd say are the people that bring me the most peace. So just especially in this industry, like it can be very like long days, taxing work, a lot of kind of like draining of your social battery. So just kind of being able to have like a good support system of friends and family that I can kind of go to at the end of the day and just decompress and relax is just super imperative, at least for me, just to be able to kick back at the end of a long day and kind of just like let my mind clear out so I can prepare myself for the next day. Just getting like that rest and recovery.
So what does Matt Wain do for fun? Like, how do you decompress? What are the things you do? Do you watch pro wrestling? Do you watch a couple of shows like the Netflix? Like, what do you do? What do you do for fun? How do you decompress? What's like your own method of like, okay, this is how I do. I understand family and friends coming in. Sometimes you want to be by yourself. Like, what are the time you're going to show back out there?
Definitely. I mean, I love hanging out with my friends. Just this past weekend, I hung out with some buddies and we were watching UFC. So I'm a big fan of UFC. Charles Oliveira is my favorite fighter. So shout out Charles. Um, I usually watch like every single UFC event, so I usually never miss one of those. I'm also a big basketball fan, so I've been watching the NBA playoffs. But yeah, just kind of relaxing, watching sports. Sports is a huge part of my life, so basically anything sports, I'm always down for, and is always a good time for me. So
As it is with everyone. I mean, so what for the NBA, what sports are you? Which team? Sorry, are you supporting? What's like your who's your favorite? What's the favorite team? Who's the team that your Matt Wain is supporting out there?
I have to say Pacers just because I work there, and I'm from Indiana, so it works out perfect. But I've also developed a little bit of affection for the Blazers since I've been out here in Oregon. They've been a fun team to follow and
Okay.
just watch. So I'd say Blazers or Pacers number one, Blazers number two.
So I was thinking I was gonna hear you say call the Knicks. So I urge you supporting the Knicks there because they've been having a great playoff so far, and I
Yep.
love everything going on with all the presents with Jalen Brunson and all of that. And I'm like, I was looking forward to to talking to you there. But I understand, obviously, you've been a part of the Indiana Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton, a good, huge pro wrestling fan, and he's
Yep.
doing his great job out there with the Pacers and all. But yeah, it's cool to have you talk about that. So so this is one of those things I wanted to ask you, and in terms of like you working with brands and being a brand strategist and all of that, like what does creative control mean to you? How do artists navigate all of that? Because sometimes you see how you talk about deals, you talk about business rights, like the media rights and all of that. Like, well, what does creative control look like when it to match with, like, how do you explain that to the viewers and listeners, hearing you, having someone like you on here?
Well, I mean, from a partnerships perspective, some of the biggest things would be like authenticity with the audience. Obviously, when you sit down with a partner and you talk about how you want to activate, whether that be from an in-person perspective, from an events perspective, from a broadcasting perspective, like authenticity is a huge factor. Making sure you're aligned on the value for both sides. So when I was with Pacers, obviously making sure the Pacers understood what the brand was looking for, that we could help them and that they could help us, just to make sure it's a good partner fit. And then kind of just building off the authenticity part, just making sure the partnership feels natural with the fans. So places here like Portland, it's a little bit of a different dynamic with like the Blazers fans compared to maybe like New York with the Knicks fans. It's just a complete different relationship between the fans and the organization. So making sure you understand that relationship and kind of like just understanding the fan base and how you're going to communicate those partnerships to them is a huge part of it.
Mm. All right. Yeah, I love the fact that we keep on bringing in authenticity and how, like, obviously that's what will connect, because when they see you show up and they see real and they feel that you are real, I think that connects more with not just the fans, the brands, and everyone you're working with. All right. So all right, because I understand that you're busy. You're trying to get things out. I'm grateful sincerely that you got to do this with me. And one of the things I wanted to get in was the aspect of, we talked about, like, the the sports side of things and everything. But in terms of advice, because I would love to know, because this is kind of like a two-part thing. In terms of like the advice side of things, for anybody breaking in into the business, I wanted to ask first, was sports, marketing, like being in the sports world, like the office side of things, the executive side of things, was that something you always loved growing up? Or is it not like as you were growing up as a teenager and you're like, okay, shit, I think I need to be in the sports world, but in the office side of things? Because you always know how, as kids, wanting to be a part of the business or the part of the sports world, either playing or being a part of it. So we rarely have people that want to, like, I want to be an executive. I want to be someone that works to put the stars out there. Was that something that growing up, say, okay, I want to be a part of, putting these stars in place to win rather than being a part of it?
Definitely. In high school, I played football. I've always been a big sports fan, but in high school, I played football and ran track. So I really like immersed myself in the actual sport itself. And then from that, I just always knew I wanted to stay in sports. I wasn't good enough to go play at the college level. So I knew like my best avenue would be just like on the business side. And then from there, I mean, I always had like a natural interest in marketing. So that's kind of where I started out, starting out in like
Mm,
sports marketing and stuff like that. And then after I got my experience with the Pacers and partnerships, that kind of just opened up my mind to that. But in terms of breaking into the industry, like the number one advice that I would give out to anyone is just putting in the time and putting in the effort to learn and get that experience, because it's like so many people want to be in the sports industry. It's such a competitive industry. Like everyone in marketing would obviously like be like, oh, I want to do marketing for said team. But the positions are very coveted and competitive and hard to get. So just being able to take what you can get, especially early on, working your way in the industry, learning about how organizations and sports teams work. Once you kind of get that insider perspective and learn about like the different levels and positions and roles and what they do and how they interact, it makes it a lot easier to kind of jump into a higher up role, just because you kind of get that base level experience. Like for me, USA Track and Field, Indy 11, and Pacers were all different experiences. So like I was able to take away the different, like I was able to analyze like the similarities and differences between each organization, and through each level I went through, I was able to just progress and learn more and
mm.
applied what I had learned from one organization to the other organization and just keep building off of that.
Amazing. To still the parlay of that, I wanted to get in on, like, in terms of like your advice. You've been a part of this for a couple of years now, and you're still building. You're yet to graduate. Congratulations once there. I can't wait to still be in touch with you, and I love the fact that we have connected. Shout out to you. Thank you so much for opening. I wanted to give you your flowers while we are on this, to say thank you for, because I feel like you are someone that it shows the kind of person that you are, for you to give the opportunity. Like, we connected on LinkedIn and we're just chatting on a couple of things, and I'm like, oh, would you want to come on the podcast, to have a talk, and without even wasting any time, you just yes, let's do this. And yeah, we I don't want to give you your flowers for you moving things and making sure that this is possible. Thank you so very much. But like, in terms of the viewers and listeners of this podcast, I would want to know, what is like the first, and for those anybody breaking in the business, with either the obviously from the business side of things, what is like the first partnership they should build for themselves? Like, what would be the one, that, oh yeah, you're breaking in, I think this is like the first partnership we should work on
Like in terms
for
of like
athletes and sports
in terms
stars.
of networking, are you asking like in terms of networking?
Yeah, in terms of networking, and I think I'm really parlaying off with like the athletes and like the sports stars. If you have the opportunity to work with them, what would be the first partnerships? It's like, hey, I think this should be the first one we should build for yourself. This should be like the starting point for those breaking in into the world of sports. I think, yeah,
I mean,
that's like what I was trying to get to.
yeah. It's really hard and it's really case dependent. But I would say if you're just someone looking to break in, honestly, I would go for like the smaller, like the semi-professional leagues.
Okay.
And even sometimes one thing I've learned is is aiming for like the teams that aren't doing so well in terms of competition, because usually in those front offices, like there, that's where the most opportunity presents itself. So like obviously, like the Lakers is an example. Like everyone would love to go work for the Lakers, but they're a super successful franchise and like their office is firing on all cylinders. So it might be easier for someone to kind of go maybe to like the Hawks front office or like Wizards front office, a team that's struggling a little bit more. There might be a little bit more opportunity for you to kind of get integrated and contribute more and do things like that within the front office. So just kind of looking for those situational advantages, I would say, is like the biggest part, but it's really case dependent.
Mm. Yeah, okay, amazing. I feel like you are, yeah, you're really getting the point. So yeah, obviously this the Chronicle podcast. We have Matt Wain on here, almost a graduate in terms of the sports, the branding, the marketing side of things from the University of Oregon. So glad to have him on here with us. So like for those the games side of things, I just have one question from the game side of things here on the podcast, and I wanted to get in there and play that with you. All right, so Matt Wayne, if you were to get an opportunity and you got a $10 million deal, and all you had to do, we're like, okay, you are supposed to be the brand, you just get this brand started. So, to brand a new expansion team in sports of your choice, you are the one to choose which sports brand, sports team you need to expand. What's the name of that team? What's the vibe? And which brand is your first lead partner?
Oh, that's a
I don't know
tough
if you
one.
got that. If you don't get it, that's a whole lot.
I would
That's a
probably,
tough one.
if I could choose anywhere, I would probably bring like an NFL team to Portland. I think that would be really cool. Or maybe an NBA team to Seattle. Either one of those two. I'm not sure what I would call it or anything, but I would definitely bring a team to Portland or Seattle in the NFL or NBA.
So yeah, I can hear you clearly. I can hear you clearly now, and I understand. Obviously, you know, thank you so very much for taking time to do this, and I love the fact that I got to get into things with you and all of that, get to know a little bit about you, and obviously we're gonna keep in touch. This is gonna be a first of many, but I couldn't help but not end this and not ask this question. I understand you also do freelancing, and you're founder and creative strategy of your own brand, the Wain Enterprise, and
Yep.
I would love to know what the Wain Enterprise means. Like, what, how does this work? Because trust me, I would want to be a part of something that is starting off and understanding that you are still building and all of that. And like you said, for someone that's trying to break in, it's gonna be advisable to start small, to go to where it's you are building than to. Obviously, everybody wants to go to the higher version. We love that for you, but if that might just be an impossible task, you could start from somewhere and build yourself to the big rank. So, what is Wayne Enterprise, and how do you would you explain this to the viewers or listeners? And someone I want to be, oh, I want to be a part of something like this because of trust me, I would want to buy into something like that.
For sure. So I kind of started it while I had a little bit of gap in my career. So it was kind of like while I was working at Indy 11 before I went and studied abroad in London. So that's kind of when I kind of created it. But it's basically a freelance marketing slash consulting company that I started. It's a little bit of a play on Batman since my last name is also Wayne. So I made it called Wain Enterprises, a little bit of a play on Bruce Wayne and Batman there. But yeah, so what I do with the company, I started off just helping out a bunch of like smaller companies. Like my friend has a photography business, and my other friend has like a social media thing.
Okay.
So I helped them out doing just some small things, connecting them with other businesses and brands so that they can do their freelancing stuff. And it kind of slowly started to level up from there. So right around the time I was ending my internship with Indy 11, I actually started working with a bunch of LA fitness locations, like the gym, the commercial gym in Indianapolis. So I started running their social media pages, kind of like creating graphics for them,
Yeah.
creating like
Yeah.
posters for them, giving them content ideas and things like that. So just gaining followers and attention, bringing attention to their social media accounts. And then just recently, I've been helping this other brand called Loosey Goosey, which is kind of like a calming pouch, an alternative to like a Zyn or an FRE or a Velo. And I've been helping bring them to retail here in Eugene, which has been a really fun process. But yeah, I kind of do a little bit of everything from like social media marketing, from B2B marketing, little warm intros, stuff like that. Just a little bit of everything wherever I can help out. And I kind of just, I knew I could do a lot of this stuff. So I created Wain Enterprise to kind of like put a brand and a logo behind the work, if that makes sense.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I listen to this and trust me, I understand you have something you need to get into, and I would want to, talk more on this when we get to talk off the mic, off the camera. We'd love to talk more on that because it's something that I'm obviously have a vested interest in. But to end this podcast, 'cause I've loved this conversation, what we've had on here today. I'm so excited that you got to do this with me and you did this. So we did our closing segment. That's a question here. What we'd like to, end this podcast for the Chronicle podcast. I would want to. I'm so Samuel Lyon. We have Matt Wain here. If this was to be the last conversation Matt Wain ever had, and I am the one that have the opportunity to talk to you, and anybody watching this that's gonna watch this or listen to this, I have the opportunity to hear from you. What would be the thing you would want us to never forget about Matt Wain?
Um, that's a tough question, but I'd probably just say my work ethic. I'm someone that's never going to stop working. I'm always pride myself on being the hardest worker in the room. So just
Mm,
one thing that everyone should know about me is I'm a very hard
yeah.
worker.
And from one hard worker to the next, I say thank you so much, Matt. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Matt Wayne joining us on the Chronicle podcast. Thank you so very much for doing that. And you heard from the man himself. I'm a hard worker. If there's anything you should remember about me, someone that put himself out there, put his ass on the sleeves. It's all about value. And in the world where value seems as if it's something that is not sexy, Matt Wayne is proving that that is all you need. Thank you so much, Matt Wayne, for joining us on the Chronicle podcast. And this was a great conversation. I'm really appreciating it, and hopefully we'll get you back on this to especially more. And congratulations for all the works and everything you've been able to do so far. I celebrate you
Thank
so
you.
much,
Thank
man.
you so much. It was awesome to
Thank
connect,
you.
and it was great to be on here.